like for you? Do you think your results would have been different if we put it through the lens of a context? Who am I going to grab first? Laura.
For me, it may be different because I work for myself. So I don't believe in clear boundaries necessarily between life and work. For me, work is part of life and they interconnect. I have my values expressed in everything I do. So that's why the limitation kind of blurs. What was the question again? I'll start like Patrick. My mind goes in so many places.
Good. You did it. And it was a tangent question because I was curious about context in your life, and you answered it perfectly because you talked about how there really isn't a separation between work and life for you because you work for yourself. Pat, what about yourself? Let's maybe use the example of your prior employment.
I'll be very careful here not to start a Patrick rant. Initially, I know for myself, and I'm guessing for the others, part of the reason they put their hands up to look at emotional intelligence in the first place is, for me, I acknowledge that there is a part of me that is emotional. I have spent the best part of 20 years using it in my day-to-day contact with everyone, personal and in work. I rely on those emotional connections to basically, I've lived on that for 20 years. The bit that surprises me is in all three cases we've, to a certain extent, been unaware of how we look after our own emotions for ourselves, always so concerned with looking after them for everyone else. And it sort of brings me to a segue in terms of tying it together for work and use beyond just my own personal realisation. And it's emotional and high levels of emotional intelligence are one of the highest sought after characteristics in the business sphere today. And it's, if people that actually sort of probably gauge fairly high on that scale don't have a lot of awareness of how to look after themselves and perform emotional self-care on themselves, how can you expect it, like employers and places of work that want these qualities in these types of people and pull them in, how can I expect them to look after my emotional wellness when I'm there as well?
Yeah.
So,
Patrick, you've touched on some really important points, because I think in a workplace, particularly now, there is a very big push for hiring people with, good emotional intelligence. But if you've never been assessed, how do you know you've got good emotional intelligence? If these businesses don't employ ways to include emotional intelligence education in their learning and development programs, how does your team work to increase, both individually and collectively, and company, the collective emotional intelligence? It's not just me, it's you, it's us, it's we, it's the entire company's emotional intelligence that all is interwoven together. It's possible to do, there's different types of assessments. So there's the individual one, there is the leadership one, there is a 360 one where your colleagues review you. They do that assessment thinking about you. And that's all collated into a team report. And then you can actually get bigger and bigger. You can actually make the team all the employees in the company, and you can have a look at the health of the company. that's where it starts to get really fucking interesting. Oh, excuse the F-bomb. Nah, let's not excuse it. Hey, so Brigitte, back to the question around context. Do you think that you might have answered differently if you were taking this in your last employment?
Yeah, I do think so. I feel like it would have. I've been unemployed for about 3-4 months now, as you know, and I think if I had answered the questions back then, I would have been looking at what I wanted myself to be in light of the business's expectations and the other personalities that I was working with, and possibly their reflections on me, which may have been accurate, may not have been, and also how I felt I should have been relating to them and maybe compensating also for their habits, or even leaning into their positive traits where it made my job easier. There was just so much going on in the dynamic of the team that I think affected me and influenced the way that I thought of myself and thought of my job and thought of the team. So it was my world. It was, I was lost in it, to be honest, and maybe not such a bad thing, but I feel like now it's just my home, myself, my children, and all the things that we need to achieve on a really raw level. It feels more real the way that I've answered, because this is me at my foundations. This is the basic aspects to my life happening right now without any interruptions, really. So I think it's more accurate now, and probably better that I have done it now, so that I can look back to this in future and know if something changes or if something's off, I've got a reference point of now of maybe who I really am. Not that it can't change, but this is who I am now, and it's not influenced by too many externals.
Yeah, you have a base now. You have a base level. You know, you have a base of knowledge upon which you can grow and continue to learn. And that's really beautiful. I tend to advise people, I mean, it's general advice anyway, that we don't do our emotional intelligence assessments more than once a year, simply because the results won't really fluctuate that much. And in fact, when I did my assessment in preparation of helping you guys do your debriefs and kind of curious of my own results, how I had changed, I haven't done an assessment since about December 2018. And I did my assessment recently, and I was really interested to see that the results were pretty similar. Higher in some aspects, lower in others. Now, when I first did it, I was running my own coaching business, completely different context. And like Laura, I did mine with a mix of life and work. But this time I did it just life, and I was amazed to find the similarities, but also where it was different.